Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, lax rats alike, welcome back to another episode of the Crease Dive. Today is Tuesday, April 25th, and Hop is so back it hurts. I'm Jordy from Barstool, and with me, as always, we've got my good friend and yours, Dukes, on the mic. Dukes, rivalry weekend has come and gone. A lot of great results over the weekend. How are we feeling heading into what seems to be pretty sure this is like the final actual regular season weekend?
Yeah, fast season, fast season. Rivalry weekend is usually when you start feeling more comfortable in your takes, and I think in this case for this season, as we know, this is the point of the year where I'm like, wow, like I couldn't have been more wrong about things that I predicted in the beginning of the season. Like even going into this weekend, we got Harvard and Yale for a chance to make the Ivy League tournament. Am I right? And I think I said
Yeah.
both those teams would be in the Final Four weekend in the preseason episode. So um, think this is the point of the season where your takes start taking form. But overall, good, great lacrosse being played. Hop is back. Maryland in the tanker. Tillman shit the season. So there's a lot of takes to be had.
Yeah. Well, let's not sell ourselves short on takes, because you and I were both we were both pretty early on the Penn State and Hop best teams in the Big Ten take. I think both of us had that early April. So geniuses, probably. Experts, definitely. I do want to mention something real quick, because I feel like this is going to be a bit of a bugaboo throughout the rest of the episode as we're talking about this previous weekend that just wrapped up. I've already mentioned it on the podcast before. I have no idea how to confidently say rivalry. If I try to say it a little too quick, I just black out that L and it just turns into rivalry. So I just wanted to get ahead of that as we continue to talk about rivalry weekend in college lacrosse. So I can't wait for this weekend to fully be behind us. Obviously, we have to get through the rest of this episode of me stumbling over that word. But yeah, I mean, let's just talk about the take though, because I feel like it was probably the third maybe episode of the season where we definitively declared that Hopkins was back. They had a few sketchy moments throughout the season, little ebbs and flows, if you will. Maybe, the loss to North Carolina, the loss to Loyola. The haters were saying Hop is back. Not a fucking chance. Hop is front. But then, I mean, what they've done since, just going on a tear here, obviously, a little slip up against Virginia, a little slip up against Penn State, but that win at Maryland on Saturday, that declares it, that Hop is the team in the Big Ten, and they are so back. So how did you feel watching that game? Was it surprising to you?
This was surprising to me. Not like Hop getting an at large or because look, as much as like we play the thin line of being like, are we joking or are we bidding? I don't really think that we can confidently say like when I was saying Hop was back, I don't even think I believed it have. But I did say one thing when they first beat Georgetown. I said they had to win one of two against Virginia or Maryland, and I did not think that was going to happen. So the fact that they got two out of those three wins against Georgetown, Virginia, Maryland, hand up, I was wrong. Hop is back. I can't. It's not even a bit anymore. Hop is back, and I gotta say, like we talk about Crowley and like we say like he's the next man up, but like fucking who is it? Milliman, the head coach. Like
Yeah.
for the amount of shit that we've given him and the amount of shit he's taken since like leaving Cornell, kind of implementing the type of team that he wanted, or he got a lot of heat the past couple of years. So like just putting together a season like this, beating your rival in Maryland, like good for him. Can't really talk shit right now. It kind of sucks. I like talking shit about to people like that because I want to be right, but fuck, I was wrong about that.
Yeah, we have talked a lot of shit towards Milliman. Some of
Not
it,
directly, just the program.
oh yeah, no. Here's the thing though, like if I ever saw P Milliman in person, I'd say like, "Hey, coach, like
Cheers.
I love you, love your work, you're incredible. Like, don't change anything." But I mean, like some of it maybe justified. Obviously, it's tough to fill the shoes of Petro. obviously, when a lot of people were thinking, oh, maybe Hopkins will go after an alum like Scott Marr, but then they come in with Milliman, a little bit off the beaten path. Didn't really see that one coming. He comes in, things aren't going great the first couple years while he's there. John Grant Jr. leaves. It looks like it's a whole big mess. But yeah, then you bring in Crawley. What Hopkins has done on the defensive side of the ball as well is incredible. Like they seem like a big, mean, athletic team that's gritty and is going to be able to score a bunch of sick goals with a guy like Russell Melendez, but is also just going to be able to wear you down physically. So I never thought that Hopkins would be like this blue collar team, kind of the same way when you go back and look at like the Yale team that won a national championship, right? Like when you think about Yale, you don't immediately equate them to being this blue collar, rough, gritty program. You just think Ivy League fucking pussies. Kind of the same thing with like Hopkins. You think of Baltimore pretty boys, right? You think of pastels, Argyle, adrenaline socks. You think about the kids with the flow that's coming down all over the place, and like you don't think gritty toughness, but that's what they're playing right now. I think that they fully bought in to the Big Ten, and I think a lot of that is Milliman's doing. So, listen, is Hop back in the sense of like the Kyle Harrison and Paul Rabel years, where they're just going to run through teams on their way to Memorial Day weekend? Maybe not quite, but they are very much on the path. And yeah, it was a bit at the beginning of the season, just because it's fun to fuck around with Hopkins fans and their emotions. We said that they were the Texas football of college lacrosse. I don't think so. Like I think that this team is firmly back right now.
Credit to us. Credit to us for admitting when we're wrong. I mean, it also is just pathetic. It's pathetic that they were gone. It's pathetic they were gone. Like that, I'll spin zone. It was pathetic that they were ever gone in the first place.
So yes, but also I feel like them being gone also coincided with like a lot of these like just cooler schools getting lacrosse programs. So like maybe they lost some, or just like, again, like Penn State is like a fucking sweet school to go to if you want to go and have a good time. I don't know how many people are going to Hopkins being like, yo, this place is sick. Like you gotta come here for a weekend. Like it's awesome. No, probably not. So I don't know. I think you can go to a lot different schools and have a better time. And like the only reason to go to Hopkins before was like they were just dick kicking teams and they were winning national championships left and right. Then once that kind of goes away, you're like, what am I doing here with a bunch of nerds where like everybody else at the school's D3? No offense. I was D3 by choice, love D3, but if you're one of the best lacrosse players in the country and you're hanging out with a bunch of nerds who like can barely throw a spiral playing D3 football, you're like, well, fuck, like, let me go transfer somewhere else. Pretty sweet. Like a UNC or like a Virginia or like a Notre Dame. So yeah, I think changing landscape of the programs definitely has hurt Hopkins. And now they're at a point where like you're probably bringing in kids who want to bring Hopkins back. And now they have it.
That's a good take. And I was actually just thinking of some selling points for Hopkins because, someone has to play devil's advocate here. It would be kind of cool because I forgot about like the D3 factor. They're the only D1 team. It would be kind of cool to just be like, yeah, we're the men on campus. Like there's no like football. It's like the football team's D3. Like you're D1. You got the band. You got everything. Like that's like that's a pretty sick gig.
Yeah, I feel like
you're the only college I can say that.
You've got to be the alphas of the campus, especially being in Baltimore too. Like you're drawing a massive crowd. So, but yeah, so Hopkins is back. Do we want to talk about this now about where Maryland is? Because Maryland is in a tricky spot. We could continue talking about some other games from the weekend before we really dive deep into Maryland.
I'll talk Maryland.
All right, so I'm gonna have to stretch out here, and the listeners might need to buckle in. But right now, I'll be honest, Maryland finds themselves in a really weird spot. So, the latest rankings came out, and I believe they have Maryland at what, 7th? I want to say that they're 7th in the poll. But right now, they're not a top 2 team in the Big Ten. So, this loss to Hopkins puts them down at third in the Big Ten. So they are now going to have to play in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. I believe that they have Rutgers coming up this weekend. I want to say that that's how the seeding shook out. So I mean, they already took care of Rutgers, a couple weeks ago, but I don't like. I'm starting to think
Don't
that
say it.
Maryland. I'm starting to think that right now they have a must-win game coming up this weekend in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. I do think that they will win it, but the fact that this game against Rutgers in the first round of the Big Ten tournament might be a must-win game for Maryland, considering where we were at just 12 months ago, right? Like Maryland didn't have a must-win game last year until Memorial Day weekend. Like all of them were just a given for Maryland that they were going to win last year. And right now, I really do think that they have a must-win game coming up on April 29th, a full month before Memorial Day weekend, because you lose this game to Rutgers, you've already have the Loyola loss, you already have a Michigan loss, you already have a Hopkins loss. You lose to Rutgers, I don't know how you put Maryland in the tournament.
See, I disagree with that. I think that the Michigan loss isn't that bad. I think that the Big Ten could get 4 teams in.
I will,
I think
yes.
there's going to be that's the debate that I kind of want to save. I would guess in the sense for the next episode, so we can reload, get the info that we need down, and like really come with a settled debate. But I mean, that's the debate right there. Which conference gets 4 teams? Because if it's the Big Ten, I think obviously Maryland's safe. But then on the other hand, it's like you can't. When are we going to start? It's nice that it is April 24th, recording on Monday night, releasing on Tuesday, April 25th, and we have not talked about the RPI once.
No, and my promise to you as the listeners is that I will never talk about the RPI. I know that Dukes likes the algorithms. I know that Dukes is a big computer guy and he likes all the numbers and shit like that. So Dukes might bring up the RPI at some point. I promise you that I will never in a million years bring it up myself. Listen, I agree that in the sense that like Michigan might just be the best 6-6 team we've ever seen. Which is funny because last year, I think at one point I said that they were the absolute worst 7-0 team we've ever
Yeah, you
seen.
did. You did.
Uh,
You did. You did. You did. You did. You did.
and so I mean, last year they just loaded up the front half of their schedule with a bunch of cupcakes, and they went 7-0, and they were absolute dog shit and frauds, and they got exposed in the second half of the season. Right now, I mean, they are a great 6-6 team. You look at some of their wins. A win against a really scrappy Delaware team, who I think not really a hot take since what they did last year, but I do think that this Delaware team could go into the tournament and upset a team. They've got the win against Harvard, which doesn't look fantastic, but it's still a really good win for Michigan. They've got the win against Maryland, which is huge, especially because that was Maryland's senior day. So, I mean, just a game where Maryland thought that they were going to walk in, give a nice little ceremony to their seniors, get out of there with an easy dub. Michigan said, fuck that. We take it. We win. And then this past week, a good win against Ohio State. So Michigan is really solid. No doubt about it. Best 6-6 team we've ever seen. I still am not sold on the fact that they are a tournament team. So is it an awful loss on Maryland's resume? Is it like the worst loss ever? No, probably not. And I'd also say that the Loyola loss is a worse loss on their resume, but it's still a loss to a team that's probably, when it's all said and done, I just, unless they go on a little bit of a run here in the Big Ten tournament, I don't see them being a tournament team. So, I mean, Maryland has that loss to Michigan, and then they have the loss to Loyola, where unless Loyola wins the Patriot League, I don't see them as a tournament team either. And then if they lose to Rutgers also not a tournament team. So that would be 3 losses to non-tournament teams. That's why I'm saying that this is a must-win game for Maryland, because they already have some rough losses on their resume.
I'm not ready to call it a must win, but it'd be a nice win. It would be like, oh, I feel like I'm in. I think that if they win, they're in. I'm not going to call it a must win for them though.
I would agree with that. I think you make the Big Ten
You feel way
semifinal.
comfortable. You feel
You
way
make
more
the Big Ten
comfortable.
semifinal. It makes it so much easier to just throw Maryland in there, regardless of how their semifinal game goes. It does make it so much easier. I just think if you lose in the first round, though, how can you put a team? Now, I get last year with the Ivies, you had teams that didn't even make their conference tournament make it into the NCAA tournament, but like I just don't know how you put a team that doesn't win a game in their first round of their conference tournament into the NCAA tournament. So I don't know.
They're
I just
seven.
I'm calling it a must win.
They're seventh in RPI. Hopkins is four, so that's a loss to a
Motherfucker,
top.
we loved how long into this we went without talking about RPI.
Well, then we're talking tournaments. We're talking seedings, and we're talking like I have to put my head inside the fucking head of a bitch, and her name's Donna, and I have to see what she's gonna be thinking for the next 2 weeks. What she's gonna be thinking is Maryland lost to the number 4 RPI team in the country. So what? You got lost to Hopkins, number 4. Michigan is 19th, so they're on the outside looking in. Notre Dame, who's like what, 2? Notre Dame, who's 2. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Notre Dame loss was good. The Virginia win was good. Like I'm not saying that Maryland's a bad team. I'm just saying that they've put themselves in a dicey situation, which is wild considering what we saw last year. And you want to know who's to blame for that?
Donna.
Well, Donna a little bit, probably. Donna's to blame for the root of all evil, but also John Tillman. I mean, come on, man. Is it not abundantly clear at this point how hard he screwed this season with his antics? I mean, dude, think about all right, so think about if John Tillman wasn't a jackass this year. Like, think about the spot that Maryland would be in right now. Yeah, they may have won the national championship last year, but like they don't look like a serious threat to contend this year. I think that if they get into the tournament, yeah, sure, they'll get to the quarterfinal, but like they don't really scream national championship contender to me at the moment. And so that puts Maryland at a really good spot where they now have a little bit of fuel for themselves, right? They're being counted out. They're underdogs. Like they're reigning champs, but they are underdogs. And like maybe a team could kind of sleep on Maryland a little bit. You might not sleep on Maryland just because they are the reigning champs, but at the very least, you might not respect their greatness because you're like, oh, this ain't the same Maryland team. And that puts Maryland in a really good spot where they can pounce. No one's gonna be sleeping on Maryland anymore because of what John Tillman. Like every team in America right now has all the reason in the world to hate Maryland, and it's because they call stick checks on face-off guys. It's because they bitch about teams wearing mismatched gloves. So John Tillman's like Maryland could have been kind of slipping under the radar, ready to get primed for another run to Memorial Day weekend. Instead, every single team they see Maryland on the schedule. They say, fuck that. We are going to pummel these teams because they're jackasses. Their antics are absurd and we need to put them in their place. That's what Hopkins did last week. That's what Michigan did to them on senior day.
So I'll say this. Ohio State, if Tillman didn't pull out that move, they'd be out of the tournament right
now. So, okay, maybe, but also, yeah, it's a massive maybe because it's not like
I said, but like I said during the glove debate that okay, if there was because again we said it going into that episode how people were saying on Twitter like should Maryland be in the tournament, then they beat Ohio State, then they're like kind of safely in for the time being. If they lose that game, we're having a different conversation right now.
But if they lose that game, maybe they have a little bit more fuel heading into this weekend because they know that they need to keep winning and they beat Hopkins, and then that kind of cancels out.
Yeah, I don't think it cancels out though. I think that the Hopkins loss is a lot better than the Ohio State loss.
Well,
for tournament sake.
I don't know. I'm looking for every opportunity I have to just dig and dig and dig.
I know. Wait, time out.
Tillman right now.
time out. Why am I a Maryland guy now?
You've been a bit. Well, you're a Tillman guy. I don't know
I,
why
I think I
you
think
love the
that's it,
iPad.
dude.
Here's
I
the thing though,
fucking do.
because Tillman probably reminds you a little bit of Belichick
Yeah.
in the sense of his antics. And I mean
Oh
he's
my
also had
god.
the success. So like I wouldn't call him the Belichick of lacrosse just because he doesn't have as many championships, but there's a lot of Belichick to be had in him, and I think that that's why you love him so much and why you want to give John Tillman a nice little smooch. But at the end of the day, I don't
I
see them
do.
losing.
I fucking love the guy. I love, and you know what it is I think that when like I talk to you and like I'll go into it and I'll be like, I feel pretty neutral about this, but when I see how passionate you are hating him, I'm I love when people hate someone. Like I love how like he's successful and fucking people hate him now. Like I love how he's got that Belichick like this like Spygate, Deflategate, and how Belichick would get these gates and then just win. Like if Tillman won after Glovegate, I I'd be a Terp for life. I'd be a Terp for life. That's a promise. If they win the championship this year, Terp for life.
It would be very Belichickian of him. But yeah, at the end of the day, though, I don't see them losing that game to Rutgers, and that's because Rutgers, what a bunch of fucking assholes, man. Beginning of this, well, not the beginning of the season, but halfway through this season, I wanted to be a Rutgers guy this year. This was the first year that I ever truly wanted to believe in this team. I never had before. Year after year after year, I discount Rutgers. I don't believe in them. And this was the year that I said to myself, you know what? Got burned by Rutgers last year. Let me go ahead and believe in these guys. Let me be a Scarlet Knight in my heart. And I said, probably like about exactly a month ago at this point, right? Rutgers, they were 7-1, and their only loss was a 1-goal loss to Army. And I think that that was a respect the troops loss. I don't think that they wanted to beat the troops in that one. So they lost to the troops by 1, and they were 7-1. And I said, heading into the Ohio State game, I said, listen, as long as Rutgers goes to Ohio State and they take care of business in this game, I'm all in on Rutgers. I believe on these fuckers. What have they done since? They've lost 4 out of 5 games. They lose to Ohio State. They lose to Hopkins. They get a win against Michigan, which looks pretty good now. They lose to Maryland, and they get fucking trounced by Penn State. So Rutgers, 4 losses in their last 5 games, and now they play against Maryland in the, but I guess the first round of the Big Ten tournament. So I mean, to start off 7-1 and end up 8-5, way out on Rutgers at the moment.
Yeah. I I'm out in Rutgers as well after I called Brian Brecht a top 5 coach. If like I think, well, what week was that? Where I said top 5 coach if he makes the Final Four again. I think since I said that,
I think that it was probably the same week that I was saying that all they have to do is just go and take care of Ohio State, and then
yeah, no, 1,000%. And this is like the classic Dukes mush. Is they go 4 or 5. So sorry, Brian Brecht, Hall of Fame no more.
yeah, well, great win for Penn State. They get a share, or do they share the Big Ten regular season championship? Or yeah, I want to say they share it with Hopkins. But either way, what a turnaround for Penn State. I was ready to call them dead as a program at the beginning of the year, but they have rebounded tremendously after a very down year in 2022, 9-3, and just really buzzing through the Big Ten after a close loss to Maryland. And yeah, I mean, I get that I'm down on Maryland at the moment, but still, Maryland still cream of the crop in the Big Ten. So a tight loss to Maryland a month ago, and then have just run through Ohio State, Hopkins, Michigan, and Rutgers. So Penn State looking pretty good heading into the Big Ten tournament. Big Ten does look really solid. I will give you that. But so does the ACC. And
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I mean obviously the ACC is a wagon. But want to know a team I want to touch on because I don't know if we'll get there today, and I just want to ask you very quickly. New segment called "Fraud or Not." Utah, you buying them or what? You think they're like? Because I've seen like Dan Arestia tweeting about how like they've scored more goals than anybody else in the country. They're in the ASUN. They're not getting like that much attention. Do you really believe them? Believe in them?
No. No, I
Same.
don't. I think that so I think that here's the thing. When I'm looking at wins and I'm saying like what's a good win, what's a bad win, like in my mind, I'm strictly thinking about like who's going to be there Memorial Day weekend. So, um is that fair to Utah to kind of hold them to that standard? Probably not. Like they're not going to be a Memorial Day weekend team. So, are they frauds in the sense of like championship contenders? Sure. But I think that Utah is doing great for where they should be at the moment. So, I mean, just
They're
looking at
good.
their losses right now, like they got crushed by Denver to start the season, a loss to Vermont, lost to Hopkins, lost to Rutgers, and then they don't really have any good wins, right? It's just a bunch of ASUN wins, and the ASUN is it is what it is. So it's not like they have any great wins. I do like their win against Marquette because Marquette's one of those teams that has sneakily just been upsetting a lot of teams this year. Um, but yeah, so I'm not like crazy about the teams that they've beat, but they're still like for where Utah should be, they're winning those games. And for where Utah should be, like they're losing the games that they probably should end up losing. So I don't see them being a team that goes like I honestly don't even think that they win a tournament game. So, but I think that Utah's doing well as a program in their trajectory. But just like this year, if we're talking about national championship contenders, I'll go ahead and say fraud. But I feel really bad about it. Like I don't want to call Utah frauds, but it's just like in the sense of can they win a championship? Then yes.
They will not win a championship, but they will win a game, depending on the matchup.
Depending on the matchup, yeah, but like how many upsets can there possibly be? And I already have Delaware winning one of them.
I'll see how the tournament shakes out. You need to know seeding because if they're playing like Duke or one of the teams I say is going to make the Final Four, then I'm going to say they're going to lose. So I'm not
Yeah,
going to say they're going to beat them.
especially because if they don't make the
My
Final
balls on
Four,
the
then you
line.
have to do
Yeah,
a goalie challenge without a couple. And just wanted to make sure that we're not forgetting about that.
yeah, my balls are on the line, so I can't. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, ACC still very much a wagon, still holding on to those top three spots in the rankings with Notre Dame, Duke, and Virginia, and all three of those teams, I believe, picking up a win this past weekend. Notre Dame coming out of I mean, I guess you can call it a bye week for them, as Notre Dame is one to do with just having random weeks off here and there, but coming out of the gates after a bye and just pounding UNC. UNC still ranked, which like I get it. Like there aren't, you know, 20 teams in the country better than UNC, but it's just three straight losses for them. And that's following three wins that like none of them are particularly that good. So
yeah.
it's been a rough skid for about the past month and a half for UNC. But they're hanging on by a thread there in the top 20. Dude, the Virginia Syracuse game, first of all, let's put an end to the old school bucket decals on helmets. You know, when Hopkins did it the first time, it was cool. Virginia looked terrible in those helmets, but they played great. Went out and spanked Syracuse. Although I will say Syracuse did end up scoring the goal of the weekend, potentially the goal of the season, with Alex Simmons. Absolute sick bastard, as only a Canadian can do. He went one hand, which was in his offhand, mind you, uh, behind the back, under the feet, back of the net. Sick stuff, Dukes. I don't know if you have this one pulled up or not, but
I
if
don't. I
not,
can get it.
yeah, but everyone's seen it. It's been all over TLN. I blogged about it on barstoolsports.com. Maybe you guys can go and give that a quick click. Click it. You don't even have to read it. Just give me those clicks, baby, trying to get up in the blogger rankings. But either way, Virginia coming out with a big win against Syracuse. So, I mean, those top three teams all look really solid, all look like they are very much contenders for Memorial Day weekend. And yeah, Duke ended up having the week off, so they didn't do anything.
I also really liked the Virginia decals, by the way. I don't know if I'm the only person that's thought it, but I love it.
You want to know what I really like? I really like the brown gloves were a great touch. And again, like Hopkins had done that with their original setup, but I don't think like we just had the technology to get that color brown onto gloves. So like they looked a little bit more golden when Hopkins did it. Like the brown gloves did look really good for Virginia. The uniform setup itself was pretty nice, pretty classic, pretty crisp and clean. I don't know. I just thought that the decals, we've already seen it before. So like the unique factor of it wore off. And then like, you know, it's like Step Brothers, like wearing the tuxedo to the job interview. Like now the decals just seem a little fucked up, but that's personal preference.
No, it is. And it's crazy because they're my favorite uniforms I've seen in quite some time. And I didn't really want to scream it from the mountaintops. I didn't really want to like deal with people.
The uniform was nice. I'm just not crazy about the helmet.
All right, here's the Alex Simmons goal.
I don't think you could just blame it on the faceoffs. I thought Rachusa, whoa, are you Simmons kidding me? Behind his ankles with his offhand. To do that with your strong hand is one thing. To do that with your offhand is just like out of this world craziness. That's the sickest goal I've seen all season.
I have a take. Yeah, I think it's fucking bullshit. I think it's bullshit that Clark called that the goal of the year. Look, talk about doing it against a backup tendy that should have had that one. I mean, Jesus Christ, we're going to call it the goal of the year.
It did end up getting. It looked like it got deflected off of a stick, and I'm guessing that it must have been a Virginia defender stick. That way, that the goal still was awarded to Alex Simmons. Listen, I agree with the call. It was fucking nasty. Dukes, I know that you have a good pick for this coming up a little bit later, but I do think I have to give Alex Simmons my Shark Talk weight room of the week, just because to do that one-handed in your offhand is absurd. Like, think about how much strength, how much wrist strength you need to have to be able to pull that one off. Yeah, I don't know what Alex Simmons is doing at night to build up that left-handed wrist strength.
Do it. I know. Yeah, multiple sessions going on there.
Yeah, I mean, he might just have to, or maybe it's just the fact that he's Canadian. But either way, absolutely sick goal, absolute monster. But at the end of the day, who gives a shit? Because Syracuse ends up losing to Virginia. Virginia, Notre Dame, and Duke, definitely the top dogs in the ACC, definitely the top dogs in the country, but the ACC in general, wagon of a conference, always has been, always will be, and it is a goddamn sham that they got so much disrespect last season.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Cuse slowly is becoming the is on the right track, and I think that next year we'll be talking. Not that I really say they were gone because they were undefeated before COVID, but obviously with everything that's happened over the past couple of years, I think that they're going to have a Hopkins bounce back kind of like next year. I think just a year away, really solidifying that. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah. All it took was Gary Gate getting rid of the suit. I believe that we were the first ones to tell him to do that. So Gary, you can thank us later. So there's the ACC. Real quick, the Ivies. So I don't think we got any. We didn't get any results that were shocking at all in the Ivy last week. It was pretty much par for the course. Yale had Albany. They took care of business there, but Cornell taking down Brown, Penn taking down Dartmouth, and Princeton taking down Harvard. I think we see those three teams clearly separating themselves from the rest of the Ivy. And then it'll come down to, which we'll talk about in the episode coming up later this week with the weekend preview, but it will come down to Harvard or Yale when they play this weekend as to who will be the fourth team in the Ivy League tournament. And I just think, obviously, history has shown us that you don't need to make the Ivy League tournament in order to make the NCAA tournament, but I do think that it's drastically different this year. So you lose that game, for all intents and purposes, your season's over. But yeah, I really think that Cornell, Princeton, and Penn have clearly separated themselves in that conference.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cornell clears everybody. I love watching them play. They're one of my, I'm making the argument they're probably behind Notre Dame for my favorite team to watch right now.
Yeah, I mean, just give the ball to CJ Kirst. You know that good things are going to happen. Billy Coyle having a great season. And then obviously Gavin Adler, absolute stud. Should be a great pro in the PLL coming up this summer. Anything else from this weekend stand out to you as far as results go? Delaware locks up the CAA with a good win over Drexel. So they went 6-0 in the conference. They'll host that tournament. I already mentioned this, but really like this Delaware team. They don't have any wins that like just stand out to you. Most of their wins coming against, I don't know, quote unquote trash. But I do like this Delaware team. I love Ty Kurtz, love Mike Robinson, Owen Grant, obviously a fucking force to be reckoned with. So I'm big on Delaware heading into the month of May.
Yeah, I mean they're a good program. They got a good coach. I think Owen Grant's a beach. Ty Kurtz is amazing. Delaware is a fun team to watch. I mean, again, I think it really does come down to who these teams draw. I feel like last year there was a lot of favorable matchups for first round upsets, where this year it's how many will there really be?
Actually, okay. So here's a quick segment. Off the top of your head, who do you think is a tournament team, probably a seeded team that would be on upset alert?
It's a great question.
Like, what team do you think that Delaware could potentially draw and beat?
Hopkins.
I like that.
Hopkins, I think.
What if we got Delaware Georgetown again? That would be electric.
I actually think Georgetown. I think Georgetown's back. Is that crazy?
Tucker Dordevic lacks Jesus Christ. Has he risen from the dead?
I think Georgetown's kind of back.
I mean, 9 straight wins after starting the year 0-3. You had Dukes.
Opposite of last year. It's opposite of last year.
So, all right. So let's rattle off these 9 wins that they've had since starting off the year 0-3, and had just Dukes all up in their mitt, calling for Tucker Dordevic to basically retire from lacrosse. But wins against Princeton, Richmond, High Point, Lehigh, Denver, Providence, Marquette, Loyola, and St. John. So obviously you play who you play. So some of those Big East games, not great, but either way, it's all about, at this point of the season, it's all about TCOB, taking care of business. And Georgetown has been doing that. I mean, you just look at the past 2 wins, right? Like teams that they need to take care of, and they left no doubt about it. They fucking crushed Loyola at Loyola. They crushed St. John's. Yeah, I mean, a tight win against Marquette. Dude, I've mentioned Marquette a couple times so far in this. They might be the best 6-7 team that there ever was in college lacrosse. I mean, do they have wins against Michigan, a win against Penn State, a couple tight games here, like a tight loss to Georgetown, a tight loss to Villanova. They're a really good 6-7 team, and I do like Marquette, so I think that's a good win for Georgetown, because Marquette, big upset team this year.
Yeah, I agree. And,
but this all started about talking about Georgetown being back. So Dukes, you're the first one on that. So this is
I think I'm the first one.
Georgetown back.
I'd call Georgetown the Jesus Christ of lacrosse. Like you said, like we're saying Tucker Dordevic. No, just Georgetown in general. Like I said, I declared them dead 3 weeks in, and 4 months later, risen or some shit like that. Whatever the Bible says that, and that's what Georgetown lacrosse is. Like I think they can sneaky make a run.
I love it. Lax Jesus down in Georgetown. Patriot League, Army taking down Navy. Not exactly surprising, but Good to see that Army is doing what they need to do in the Patriot League. Like, I just love when teams, and this is basically like the anti-Jacksonville, like when teams just take advantage of their conference schedule. They win all the games that they need to win. They might have a couple tough losses in the mix somewhere, but I mean, Army's losses right now, they lost to UMass to open up the season, but that's a game in February 11th. So who gives a shit about that? And then a tight loss to Cornell. Like the rest of the way, they've taken care of everybody that they need to take care of. No other blemishes on the schedule. Like again, like you look at what Jacksonville does, and they do this. They're the new high point to me, where start off the year, you get that win over Duke, and it's like, listen, all you got to do is just win all the rest of the games that you're supposed to win, and they lose to Air Force last week. So like Jacksonville, see you later. But yeah, Army doing everything that they need to do. The troops, beware of the troops. 10-2, best team in the Patriot League, and I see them probably.
Yeah,
I want to. No, I just want to say that they walk through the Patriot League tournament.
Okay, because I thought you were going to say what I was thinking you were going to say, which is exactly what I was thinking. Which you go 10-2, probably get upset in the first round. I'm putting them on fraud alert too.
The troops.
Yes. No, not the troops. Not the troops. Not just the troops.
So noted troop hater, Duke. So
yeah, go Navy. Antifa? Yeah, I'm a Xavier Arline guy. Look,
Duke's is Antifa.
When you beat a team by 5 goals, and Xavier Arline's on Twitter for highlights more, who's really the winner?
I guess
that's a spin zone.
It is a spin zone, but like then that's like, well,
Also, I bought into Army last year. I bought into Army last year. I call them I thought last year's team was the best troops team that we've seen in years. And as soon as I said that, they fucking lost in the Patriot League. I want to say semis and didn't make the tournament.
Yeah, well, I mean,
can't buy into them again. Not 2 years.
You have to wonder: is Army better off without Brendan Nickturn?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I can't wait. Talking about Brendan Nickturn is we're also getting into not just like college lacrosse season and all this. We're also getting into mock draft season. For the PL.
Yeah, a lot of Kark's big board.
The big boards. Yeah. The game translates well. What the fuck does that mean? What does it mean his game translates well? He's a good shooter in college and pros. Yeah. And then there's like a Twitter accounts with like 1,000 people making big boards for 4 rounds of lacrosse. Love it. I live for this shit. I'll make mine. You gonna put one out this year?
Yeah, I'm just gonna draft every single face-off senior.
Well, why? They're gonna ban the face-off anyways.
Yeah, get them one last run. Give them one more summer to just get after it.
That's like drafting a dinosaur 6,000 years ago.
Yeah. Then get the.
Dude, there's gonna be like a little like exhibit in the Bronx Zoo, and it's gonna be like Jerry Ragonese, Greg Renly, and just like the kids are gonna be like, "Who is that?" It's gonna be like, "You don't want another." You used to only face off on lacrosse.
They used to roam this earth. Be like, what the fuck?
They used to win lacrosse games for the team, be the best players, most important pieces.
All right. Well, yeah, that is pretty much everything that happened during Rivalry weekend in college lacrosse. We've got some segments to get into. Why don't we just jump ahead and go into, because we already mentioned a little bit, but let's do our Shark Chalk weight room of the week. This is brought to us obviously by Shark Chalk. For everyone who goes to the gym, listen, summer's right around the corner, boys and girls. We got to get those beach bods in shape. We got to get it going now. The best way to get that body in shape is a lot of explosive workouts, something like, like a hang clean, or anything else that you're going to need a little extra grip in the gym for. You're going to go ahead and grab yourself some Shark Chalk. It is a new liquid form of gym chalk. So back in the olden days, you grab some regular chalk. Look at that. Duke's got it right now, probably about to head out. You know, we're recording this. It's 11:13 at night. I bet the Dukes is about to go get a couple reps in right now. But, you know, back in the olden days, you used to have to just get regular gym chalk. Used to be a mess. Used to get all over the place. Used to look like a jackass. But Shark Chalk is a liquid form. It's a little bit more discreet. It's going to give you better grip. It's going to clean up a little easier. So it is the way to go if you are going to be getting after it. So make sure to head over to sharkchalk.com, put in promo code LAX20 for 20% off of your next order. Dukes, your Shark Chalk weight room of the week.
Look, there's one right answer. I'm always right, but when there's one right answer and then there's like 70 piles of shit and then the next possible answer. And it's not surprisingly the captain of Stanford football, who now plays for Virginia lacrosse, botch his name every week. Not going to stop now. Ricky Miezon.
I think that was it. You got that good.
No, that's the wrong one.
Mark lost it. Now he gets it back. Syracuse has got to get it past the midfield line at the 62nd mark. And that man, the football player, the linebacker from Stanford who transferred in the offseason, Ricky Miezon, lays the lumber.
We were talking about Hopkins kids from the Baltimore, PA, like the Baltimore area, just like going wanting to play lacrosse. Could you imagine being a kid growing up playing lacrosse, being like, oh, like just like being happy or D1, like just in good shape, being able to be in better shape than your friends that are like drunk in fraternities at Penn State, and you have to go against a fucking Division I football player, in Ricky Miezon. And how about those fucking teams that have to go against Dante Trader and Ricky Miezon, and you're just like, I could just die at any point. Like there's being like Brett Makar, who's fucking like huge on Maryland, like a fucking man child. And then there's being Ricky Miezon and Dante Trader. Like Dante Trader could go to the NFL and he's going against kids from like Boys Latin. So just like shout out to Ricky Miezon, just fucking decleating kids and giving this kid a story to tell his kids.
Dude, decleating and dehelmeting kids. I mean,
dude,
the bucket pop on that helmet was vicious. I mean,
it keeps happening to them. It keeps happening to Syracuse. It happened to UNC too.
Listen, I mean, if you've got a game against Virginia coming up on your schedule, maybe do yourself a favor and throughout practice that week, just keep adjusting your chin straps, get that nice and tight, because there's a chance that if you're coming over the middle of the field on a clear and Ricky Miezon is coming at you with a full head of steam, he is going to obliterate you. That helmet's going to go flying everywhere. It's going to be a great highlight for TLN. Yeah, Ricky Miezon, stallion, definitely. I mean, dude, just like imagine it's got to be like when you're warming up in baseball and you put the donut on your bat and then you get to actually like the guys that he was hitting playing Pac-12 football and now being able to come out and just hit a kid that plays Syracuse lacrosse, like that's got to feel like nothing to him. So yeah, bad man, definitely worthy of the Shark Chalk of the week.
Do you know what his trick is too? I'm sure you know, is he actually been DMing Ricky and he's like, hey, how do I get strong like you in the gym? Because he's like, I saw the soft 75. How do I get so jacked? And I was like, look, Ricky, use promo code LAX20, go to sharkchalk.com, get yourself this in pink or white. And look, I'm not saying that I'm the reason that Ricky Miezon was our Shark Chalk hit of the week, but weight room of the week. But the guy knows his secrets. And I'm even hearing that he's putting it underneath his gloves now. Tillman's looking into another glove gate. So it's a huge fucking thing.
Dukes is the #1 strength and conditioning coach in college lacrosse at the moment. Yeah, I mean, that hit was so good that I know I already half gave my Shark Chalk weight room of the week to Alex Simmons for that goal earlier, but I'm just going to go ahead and double up on your pick. Ricky Miezon is the unanimous weight room of the week this year. Let's go to let's do a little major performance, because I feel like we're almost done talking about mid majors for the year. We're gonna see them probably like once in the tournament. So we don't have a lot more time left with mid majors. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give mine to the Manhattan Jaspers. Dude, the Jasper, I think that they might just be America's team. You look at, they were a tournament team last year. A lot of guys fell in love with Manhattan. And I'm falling in love with them again right now, because in the year 2023, with the shot clock, with just the pace of play and the way that offense is played today, the fact that they held Wagner to just 2 goals throughout an entire lacrosse game is absolutely astounding. Joseph Persico in net for Manhattan. He had 8 saves on the day, so it's not like he saw a ton of rubber, but still made a ton of saves in the process. But yeah, I mean, that defense for Manhattan just putting the clamps on Wagner. So holding Wagner to 2 goals in a 6-2 game. I mean, dude, 6-2. Do you think that that's got to be the lowest total that we've seen in college lacrosse over the past 5 years?
Since the shot clock was in.
It's
Right?
got to be, right? Eight
Yeah,
total goals.
I think it has to be, unless there was like some snowstorm.
Like, here's the thing, like, if Wagner had won that game, like say like that was like a 7-6 game, like I'd almost give my mid-major major performance to Wagner's defense for holding Manhattan to just 6 goals. Like, even that's crazy. But for Manhattan to hold Wagner to 2, they are worthy of the mid-major major performance of the week, at least for me. And they are currently leading the MAC. They'll probably win the MAC and hopefully be another tournament team again this year.
My mid-major major performance of the week. Every Division III lacrosse player. I think that the D3 guys, they don't get enough shine, but I think this is the time of the year where we start seeing like less blowouts between the teams. We start seeing the NESCAC tournaments. Just in general, D3 gets a little bit more shine. I saw Williams and Wesleyan played this weekend. Called a little bit of that game. Great lacrosse. Reminded me that there's more to lacrosse than just Division I and the PLL. So shout out to all the D3 players out there.
Wow, what a guy. I also love around like this, every once in a while, we didn't get it this year, but every once in a while you'll get like the random like Salisbury attackman who ends up on the Tewaaraton finalist nominee list. So that's always a great thing to see around this time of year. Unfortunately, I hate D3 lacrosse at the moment just because my Ursinus Bears have just been getting fucking pumped the last few weeks. So not a great season for Ursinus. So I'm trying to forget that it exists. But yeah, shout out to all the D3 guys, D3 by choice. Anything else before we wrap this thing up? Obviously, we'll have another episode coming up later this week that'll be previewing all the games this weekend. So anything that we miss right now, we might be able to just roll into that next episode. But anything before we leave? News that came out today. The PLL All-Star Game will be held in Louisville, Kentucky. I initially said that sucks on Twitter, but have since been receiving pretty much the entire Louisville tourism board in my mentions, just telling me about how great of a town Louisville is. So I'm willing to give Louisville the benefit of the doubt. I still don't think that, if I were one of the best players in the PLL, I don't know if I'd want to spend a weekend there in the summer when I could just have the weekend off. But I've had enough people telling me in my mentions that I'm a fucking asshole and that Louisville is actually a really sweet place. So I'm willing to have an open mind to Louisville at the moment.
It's pretty sick. I like Louisville. I don't think that it's somewhere I'd rather be in Montauk or somewhere for a free weekend. I agree with you on that. I think that it's a weekend they should consider going to. But I don't know. I think it's definitely a weird place to do the All-Star Game. I don't know if they're trying to get that Cincinnati draw down, because I know Cincinnati kind of has some lacrosse schools down there, and I know the whole point of this is to grow the game. So look, if a price that we have to pay is to go to Louisville, Kentucky as lacrosse fans to support, they'll have my support. But if they don't grow the game because of it, I'll be saying it's a stupid move. But if the game is grown.
Do you want to know the best way that you could possibly grow the game of lacrosse?
Going to Long Island again?
Well, but also if you smash the subscribe button on YouTube to the Crease Dives channel, if you follow us on social, on Twitter and Instagram at the Crease Dive, if you check us out on TikTok at Stool Crease Dive there. So make sure you guys are subscribed, like, comment, all that nonsense. It helps us get eyes on the page. Follow us on social. Follow Dukes at Dukes on Twitter. Jordy Barstool there. Follow everything, right? It's free. We're not going to clog up your timeline too much. It's more lax content. We're getting May's right around the corner.
Lacrosse season.
It's lacrosse season, baby. You're not going to want to miss a thing, just like Aerosmith said. And in the meantime, we'll be keeping it low to high until the day we die. We out.